Well, good morning, everybody. Well, there's a lot I would like to pack into this morning minute today, and we're going to start off with the severe weather over parts of the southeast. This animation over the last 12 hours just shows us on radar here just the intensity of some of the very large complexes of storms that rolled out of parts of Texas, Oklahoma, into parts of Arkansas, Louisiana, and then just ripped across Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia yesterday. Some of these produced some incredibly large hail and also straight line wind damage, numerous reports, and there were 10 reports of tornadoes as well. In addition to that, we still watched on radar the rest of that system that was over Michigan just slowly move through New York and then eventually on its way out here toward the Canadian Maritimes today. And once again, we have a broader trough over the west. It just ignited more storms in this particular area. From our Storm Prediction Center, we can see that 491 reports of severe weather yesterday, including 317 reports of wind damage, 164 in hail. Some of the hail reports in through here were just huge. We had multiple reports of hail that was over 4 inches in diameter. So there's a lot of damage down here. A lot of this was in our cotton belt, but we grow a lot of other crops that are down in this area. So just something to consider here. When you look back and just kind of get an idea of the last 3 days of hail across the United States, that's what this map shows here. This is maximum estimated hail size. And just a reminder, when you get into these brighter colors in through here, that's everywhere that we've found over 3 inches. So some very large hail in through here, of course, this side of the Red River Valley, and then all throughout the south into the southeast here. So there's going to be a lot of growers that are going to be out surveying just completely destroyed crops today after yesterday's events. Next, if we just take a look at the satellite imagery as the sun rises this morning, this is just a lot of smoke that is still sitting here from the Western Canadian wildfires from this past 5 to 7 days. And that smoke just continues to sit over much of the Midwest over toward, the east here. And yesterday, I just want to show you, as those storms were just exploding down here over the south, and this low was going up to try to put those fires out, the smoke out ahead of it still pressed across parts of the upper Midwest. And we just, as the sun sets here, we just get a much better scattering angle off of the smoke from the sun as it hits this passive sensor, and you can just see just the depth of that smoke. Just incredible to see that. I did get some pictures I'd like to show you here. John sent me this and said I could show it to you, John Grant, and this is just an incredible view of the 13th. So this, I think this is like a Ring door camera, but he told me that this shoreline is about a mile away, and then he sent me a picture and said this is what things look like yesterday. And that smoke just in the haze associated with it, couldn't even see, really off the end of his pier here. Just incredible to see how bad this smoke is. Well, the fires that are in British Columbia and Alberta are being put out right now. And you can see the smoke kind of ending in this area. Yet it continues to get wrapped into this deeper trough that keeps sitting over this particular area. You can also see another component to this flow. Notice how down here the smoke that is over parts of Mexico is beginning to take on kind of this broad scale circulation like I'm drawing here. And that's actually critical to the upcoming ridge that's developing into Mexico and into Texas, which is a part of this pattern evolution we're seeing here toward the end of the month of June. So one last thing to show you here. The sun's trying to rise this morning across parts of the Canadian Prairie, but I'm going to take you back to yesterday just to show you the size of this storm system rolling through and what it's been doing in terms of cloud cover and precipitation here for British Columbia and Alberta. And the important thing is take a look at the fires that were here in parts of northern Saskatchewan, and we're going to put some storms over the top of that. Many of these storms were quite photogenic. I saw several pictures of land spouts coming out of them, but this is the hope that this comes through, and this is not the only system coming through this area to deliver some rainfall. So just coming back here to the U.S., we're going to use the MRMS data to look at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. Again, a very interesting phenomena with that stacked low over Michigan, just kind of ruining the state for getting widespread rainfall, but all around it, some heavy rainfall. And then, of course, our severe weather corridor really starting here, producing not only flooding rains, but as we talked about, some incredible hail and strong straight line winds. But as we've been doing, we've been taking this map and lopping off everything below 1/2 of an inch. So it's just looking for, who's got the heavier rains, the more influential rains on the crop. And I'm specifically honing in on an area that's right in through here that's missed out on a lot of this precipitation. Take a look at this part of the Mid-Atlantic, North Carolina. Of course, we talked about Michigan, and there are several holes throughout the Midwest that have missed as well. We expect drier conditions over parts of the southwest and California, but it's also been quite dry in the interior parts of the Pacific Northwest as well, but not not in Idaho, and not in Montana. You can also see some drier spaces here in Texas as well. We're going to keep that in mind in just a few moments here, but I want to get into this near-term forecast because once again this morning we've got the air quality alerts out for parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. Flood watch is out for Wyoming. Look how deep the trough is here in the west. These are frost advisories, excuse me. Red flag warnings, got critical fire danger down here in parts of New Mexico. This is all heat advisory and excessive heat watch. And we still have our flood watches out in a few places under flood warning here, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia. And today the severe weather resets itself. We come back over to parts of Oklahoma where they've got, again, another day of moderate risk in this area. And then we go into the day on tomorrow. This will be the 16th, Friday. And we're going to watch that same corridor again. And as we work our way into Saturday, it's going to be down here in parts of the southern plains where the severe weather is going to light up. Now we look at the causes for this, and the float, which is still kind of a tangled up mess here, is full of short waves. There's one here, there's one there. You can see there's one coming over the Great Lakes. This is the low that's leaving. This is the one that just came through, through British Columbia, Alberta. It's going to go into Saskatchewan today. We have the broader features, like here's our larger ridge we're going to be watching develop over Texas. That's a critical piece. There is some sort of high that's sitting here, but this is going to be more about tropical development. Yeah, I have to start talking about tropical development now. And there could be the right setup down here in parts of the Caribbean to enhance some convergence, to pop some convection both here and here. That could, well, this side could sneak up into the Gulf of Mexico. I no longer think it's a phantom system, so we're going to have to talk about that. So let's go have a look at it with the high-res models first. We're going to start off with the high-res NAM. And again, what you're going to see is the shortwave coming, shortwave. There's a shortwave here. There's the shortwave there. These are all the areas that are kind of triggering the storms as we go through the day today. So let's get this out through midday today. Complexes of storms continue down here along our Gulf Coast. And then you see tonight what we're going to be watching right in through this area. Now, the model will not resolve the storm structure. It just can't. But I want you to know that this will be the corridor over which we're just going to keep an eye on the severe weather risk as we go into tonight. Heavier rains move in with the broader wave that's coming out of Wyoming. That's going to spread some rain into the Dakotas. And you did notice that there is, like I said, with that wave coming through the Great Lakes, there's some colder air behind this. So we're going to drop a front here, but that's going to be before a lot of heat builds into this area later on this afternoon. So that front swipes through, brings in some more rain to Indiana, parts of Indiana scattered into Ohio as well. And then that low kind of curls its way up over Lake Erie. And then we get our way into Friday. This is now Friday midday into Friday evening. And we're going to be watching for a late weekend storm system to hopefully get itself organized to get into some of the driest places here in the Midwest. So that's just a quick rundown of what we've got here in the high-res models. Let's look at the bigger picture. Now, this is a little different than the maps I've been showing you in terms of precipitation ranks. This one is only the front half of June, so June 1st through the 14th. And again, notice the Mississippi River. So just recall what's happened in the Mississippi. Last fall, record drought. Okay, so this whole basin, of course, was at near record lows in terms of depth. Then the snowmelt from the spring, we had parts of the river that got shut down because it was too much water. And then now we're back into that same basin showing up with drought. You can also see just other pockets around the country we've been discussing that have been very dry versus the regions that have been just near record wet. So when I show you the next 7 days from the WPC, I think the most frustrating spot to forecast has been the rains possibly coming into this area as we go into this upcoming weekend in the next week. You've seen forecasts take all of the rain out. We've then seen it put back in. This is another wetter forecast for parts of Iowa and Illinois, but it clips off eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, and Wisconsin. And this also includes parts of Michigan as well. And I want to remind you of something when you look at my maps. I put 2 contours on them to help you see the colors rather than just jumbling it up with a bunch of numbers here. This one is the 1/2 inch, and it's all over the map. And then you have this one, which is the 1.5 inch. That's what we're currently seeing here in this forecast. So other things to note: heavier rains throughout parts of the Midwest here, getting over into the western Corn Belt. The heaviest rains on the entire map are down here again, coming out of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, northern Florida. The rains coming into the Carolinas and Virginia. This is fantastic because what's going on here is the low we've been talking about all week, which had some trajectory like this in earlier forecasts, is now expected to follow the broader trough and curl around. So that dip to the south is just where it's going to follow the heaviest rains, and that brought up the precip totals for the drier spots in the Carolinas up into, Virginia and Maryland. We have another deeper wave that's going to deliver more rain to parts of Saskatchewan all the way over to British Columbia, so this whole stretch in through here as well. Now, to go show you the individual model runs, this is the European. So as I play this out through Saturday into Sunday, that's through Sunday right there. And then we get out here to Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. They're going to pause it at a week out. You saw that again, right? What's going on here, I'm going to explain this in just a few seconds, why we seem to be unable to break through this area to bring in precipitation. There's an important low-level feature in the atmosphere that keeps blocking things in this region, and that's got to get pushed out before we start to get better rainfall in here. But that's a week out in the 0Z Euro. Let's now go to the GFS. Same scenario here. That's out a week. So European, GFS. There's a lot better agreement in the models this morning. But unfortunately, they're agreeing on this same area getting missed all the way up to the solstice here. Now, to show you why this is such a problem, or I know why it's a problem, but to show what's going on in the atmosphere that's creating the problem, I want to get to you here. It is actually quite a rare thing in this point in spring and early summer just to see such persistent troughing over the the eastern United States. And with troughs continuing to dive into the west, what happens is in the middle you just pinch a ridge right in through this area. So can you see that? So here's the next little wave coming through that wants to get into this area, but there is no incentive in the atmosphere for it to do that. In fact, it would much rather follow this flow and get pulled around this low here. So see this ridge? That right there in the atmosphere, that is what's acting almost like a barrier preventing these troughs from getting through. So that one dives into Missouri. It dives through the southern half of Illinois and then ends up here over Tennessee and Kentucky before delivering its rain, early next week over to parts of the Georgia through the Carolinas up to Virginia. And what rebuilds? Another ridge. Now, I want to just let you all know that this ridge is building back into Ontario and Quebec, which means we could bring in hotter and drier weather back into this area, which last time this happened, it produced the wildfire smoke. Remember, the flow around this is going to go something like that. So this could be something that would set up this region to have more smoke coming into that area. But here I am on the solstice, and there are signs of a promise, but some of you are getting tired of hearing me say that, right? Just like, oh, look, we keep seeing this evolve in the models, yet it never shows up. But I'm going to share with you what I'm seeing still. Broad troughs in the west, fine. If you can get a ridge here, or get this ridge, this guy right here, to really build in and knock these out, we're going to open this entire area up to ridge riding storms that come over the top. This has to go. We cannot have this ridge that's in this area just blocking everything. So we just want to watch to see if the ensembles are getting rid of that. And, I know it's way out there, but the 24th, we kind of see some hint that may happen. But this is still a problem. And there is still, if you look at the colors, some above average heights in this area, which means we have to get rid of that factor, that ridge, in order to break this down. Now, I've been telling you all along for the past about 30 days that the time period over which I think we need to make a call on what the summer is going to bring for some critical areas in the Ag Belt in the central United States is going to be the 21st to the 25th. And if this pattern evolves by then, we'll be singing a different tone. If it does not, if it fails again, then we have to have some serious discussions, especially about the Corn Belt and what that might mean in terms of just completely backing off on yield potential in this area. I need the Bermuda high to come back. We'll talk about that more tonight, but I just wanted to bring that up. So, quick probability map. Chance of getting an inch in the next 10 days. We can identify these stormy and wet corridors, and then we're going to take it from here and show you the probability of getting less than half of an inch. And that really just hones in on this spot right in through here through the 25th that continues to show promise in developing storms, but they have not yet fully manifest themselves in this area. All right. From here, week 2. The most generous, again, would be the CPC. They're predicting near normal rainfall in this area. Now, that is on the hope that we do end up developing ridge riders, or the trough downstream weakens, or we just overpower this with a deeper trough in the west. But you can see that the European and the GFS ensembles are drier. Again, there's a big discrepancy in week 2 with the European and the GFS on what's going to be happening from the lower Mississippi Valley toward the southeast. We're going to just continue to watch this, but it could be quite wet and stormy in this area. Okay, last few things to finish up with. Let's go to temperatures. Here are today's high temperatures. So a very hot one throughout the Corn Belt, and of course a scorcher down here where our heat advisories and excessive heat watches are in Texas. But there's a front slicing through this area pretty quickly here, knocking the temperatures back. And by the way, much of this area that I've been so concerned about with drought. In fact, let me just show you something here. Let's go to let's go look at my website. I have on here recent temperature patterns. You know, for the last 7 days, we've been cooler. In fact, if you look back over the last 30 days, this area has not endured a lot of extreme heat, which is what's, I think, keeping it away from having such disastrous results on yields. But the heat that's coming in there right now, just as we showed you, there it is. You know, by Friday, it's already cooled off in most of this area. And then we go into the weekend, and there's not 80s, mid-80s isn't going to hurt this. But the dryness is what we're concerned about. So this is Saturday's high temperatures getting into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now, did you see the depth of that trough in the west? That's the key player. Can that be enough just to knock this ridge out of place? You got to lose this trough over here first. And the southeast has been an area that's just been cool for a long time. In fact, let's go look at that real fast. Latest GDD anomaly. You know, we have some places down here that are off by 160 to 180 GDDs, 190 GDDs. So that's pretty far behind in this area, but the whole southern tier of the country's been behind. Okay, 5-day sliding window of average temperature anomalies. Not much of a story change here. The depth of that trough. We'll watch for this area to build out into a ridge. Concerned about the wildfire threat here going through this 3rd week of June and into the end of June. And then as we play out here toward the end of the animation, we notice a lot of the upper Midwest keeps its warm bias, but will the storms begin to erupt as the moisture tries to return? Last few things, just to kind of tee you up for tonight's forecast. We're going to have a really good look at what these ocean temperatures are going to mean. We're going to talk about how this particular pattern could produce a much different looking July for a lot of the United States. And unfortunately, we have to be talking also about what's going on in the tropics. So this morning, just as the sun was rising here, did you notice that this has been an interesting year compared to the last few? I have not yet talked at all about Saharan dust. The last, 3 years? I think it's at least 3 years. We've had huge Saharan dust plumes coming off. None of that. Instead, what we're going to be talking about is potential tropical development. Our models are now starting to hint at the potential for a tropical system to develop here, and also one coming out of this part of the Caribbean. And the models are kind of getting a little bit, excited about this. Let me show you what I mean. Here's the European from earlier. Watch right down here. Do you notice coming out of the Caribbean? You're right here. We have the potential for some sort of tropical disturbance in this area. The GFS goes just gung-ho with it. Here it is. It's just going to rip it over parts of Florida. Now, we, of course, don't know that this is a correct system, right? We don't know that that's going to be there. It could be a phantom system, but it is important to note that the model's been consistently doing that. All right, I really appreciate the extra attention you've given me as we've tried to diagnose this pattern. I'll look forward to giving you an in-depth briefing tonight and just kind of talk about what the bigger picture things are as we head into this critical time period at the end of June. So I appreciate it. Thank you.